Hello, this is Amrit and Yaoqi again. Hope you enjoyed the talks. In case you missed any, the entire video will be available on YouTube, and we'll also be segmenting it so that you can jump directly to the talk that you may have missed. Now we are towards the end of this virtual event. This segment will be the last bit on our agenda today, and therefore we'll keep this segment as a Q&A session. We have received several questions from the committee beforehand. We'll start with those, but please post your questions in the YouTube chat box, and we'll try to pick as many as we can. But before we start, I would like to ask Yaoqi to give us a quick demo of our roll-up launchpad. We have been building this for quite a while now, and we did a couple of campaigns around this as well. And so let's go through that first, and then we'll open the floor for a broader Q&A. Yaoqi, over to you.
Yeah, so I believe like most of the audience already know we have this rollup as service dashboard platform, right? So easily you can just log in to this dashboard.alt.technology, and once you enter this page with a single sign-on, typically your Google account, you can see roughly the same like sort of structure and setup as I'm showing to you. So here I will just show you how to quickly set up a rollup of Flash layer in our context. So there are two ways. Actually, the fastest way is to use the Flash GPT. So we integrate like GPT with our dashboard. So in that case, as you can see, right, you can just describe what kind of Flash layer you want. And then within a few seconds, it will generate the configuration file for you. And since it's chatbot, right? So you can just tap what kind of configuration parameter you want to change. For example, we want to change the name to Rust Day and token symbol to Rust. So after that, it will directly change the corresponding parameters. And yeah, after that, so this is, so you can change the token symbol again to Rust2. So after that, right, you can basically later deploy the Flash layer where the generated configuration file. Or we can just use the default one here. You just click the deploy the Flash layer. It will just deploy within 2 minutes. And there's an alternative way. If you are a developer, right, you want to choose the parameters sort of with some precision, right? So you can go to this second tab called Create Flash Layer. And then by default, there are two modes for you. One is first come, first serve. The second one is the typical gas mechanism. And then you can just input your Flash layer name, for example, Rusty again. And then you can configure the gas limit and also the block time. After that, you can also define your token symbol and also the currency name. After that, you define the Genesis account you wanted. And by default, we have this block explorer and also token foresight for your rollup, or we call Flash layer. After that, you can just click create. Typically, it just like take 2 minutes to generate the sort of the Flash layer. As you can see, right, it's already generated one, and basically you can look at the block explorer. All the blocks are generated, and also you can go to the token foresight and claim the tokens you sort of have. Beyond that, right, as we can see, there are also IDE, so you can deploy your contract to the Flash layer or the rollup you just deployed. And by default, we already have some token contract template. You can basically go to the first tab. There's a contract generator. You can just choose what kind of ERC20, ERC721 contract you want to use. And beyond that, if you launch multiple rollups, right, you can manage your rollup where this tab called Manage tab, and then you can decide what kind of operations you want to apply on these flash layers or rollups. And as Amrit mentioned at the beginning of this conference, right, we have a very special feature called flash layer settlement. So that means when you do anti-mint or some events, right, so you can deploy a contract on the L2, but once the event is done, you can leverage this tab we call rollup tab, and then select the contract on the L2, and then in one shot, the product can automatically roll up all the NFTs and also assets within this contract back to the selected L1. Yeah, this is roughly the sort of the roll up as a service platform can provide for you. And later, as I just mentioned at the beginning, right, we'll provide more services. And for example, the dev tier with the persistent rollup with fraud proof and the multi-sequencer. And meanwhile, we are also integrating the Arbitrum orbit. So later on, you can have more choices to launch for your dedicated rollup. Yeah.
Thank you, Yaoqi. Let's open. So, by the way, a gentle reminder: if you have any questions that you want us to answer, you can post them on the YouTube chat box, and we are monitoring that chat box, and we pick questions from there directly as well. In the meantime, we have received questions, I think from Twitter, and I would like to take one question, and I'll pass it to Yaoqi first, and I'll take another one myself. So let's start with this question. So this is maybe I will start with this one, and then I'll pass the second one to Yaoqi. So the question is, can you explain the advantages of your technology in comparison to other competitors out there in the crypto space? Right. This is something that I addressed in my first talk. So basically, there are different types of providers out there. So in particular, RAS providers that are building similar solutions. And by the way, when we started building this, I don't think there was anyone, or even the term roll-up as a service wasn't quite there, used in the space. But yeah, since then, there have been a couple of at least 4 or 5 similar vendors or people building similar solutions. So here is the comparison. So the first thing is we are the only ones that has fraud-proof enabled at the moment using our own tech stack. So this is currently on the testnet, but we'll hopefully go mainnet very soon after that, once we're happy with the results from the testnet. The second thing is that we support decentralized sequencing from the get-go. So again, people are, and you heard talks about decentralized sequencing from several speakers today, but decentralized sequencing is still not enabled in any platform as far as we know. And in fact, the rollups that you launch from through dashboard could have multiple sequencers if you wanted to. And we already have a multiple sequencer testnet already live that you transact with already. And there's other thing which is mostly around different kind of like a WASM based, because the entire stack is based in WASM, it kind of gives you a multi-chain, multi-VM support from the get-go, right? It allows people to kind of have different choices in terms of EVM that they can have. And finally, which is we are the only ones that provide this unique type of execution layer that we call flash layer. So this disposable layer where you spin up the flash layer, you use it for as long as you want, and when you feel like you're done with it, you don't need that anymore, you can take the entire network down. All the infrastructure that was supporting it will be taken down as well. So it's very resource optimized, and we're the only ones to offer this. Let me pass the second question to Yaoqi. This is more of a experience question, which is someone asks, could you share some unique challenges that you faced while developing rollups and modular blockchains at AltLayer, and how you overcame them?
Yeah, it's a great question. So as Amrit just mentioned, right? So at AltLayer side, we are providing a lot of unique and brand new features for this space. For example, this decentralized sequencing, multi-sequencers, and also this multi-VM. Apart from EVM support, we also support like WASM, and later on for different programming language, they can also compare into WASM for execution. And beyond that, regarding this disposable execution layer with proper proof system, and all this stuff I would say, quite new to the entire like sort of blockchain space. And today I also share about this insurance rollup interlayer, the beacon layer, right? And I believe this is also the first time for us to explain what's a beacon layer and how it can really benefit the entire rollup space. So to implement and actually to design these features in a comprehensive way, it takes a lot of time and a lot of efforts from the entire team to really make it possible. So the implementation side is already very tough. And beyond that, for the other challenges is really about the automation. Compared to some other public blockchains or a lot of these general purpose L1s, L2s, right? So you just need to build your tech stack and you at most just need to run the infrastructure for your chain itself. But for us, we're building this rollup as a service platform, which is quite similar to AWS in the Web2 space, right? So in that case, we need to handle tons of thousands of rollups. Give you one example, like for the current Flash layer spin-off, right? We already got over 12,000 free tier spin-off via the dashboard. So in that case, we really need to build a full automatic infrastructure to really launch these rollups, manage these rollups, and also coordinate these rollups. So that's also very challenging compared to for most of the general purpose L1s, L2, they just need to manage their own chain. For us, like we need a completely automatic system to handle all these automatically instead of like doing it in a manual way. And beyond that, right, as I just mentioned, because in the long run, we want to decentralize the entire infrastructure. So it's not like a pure AWS in Web3. We want to have a decentralized this kind of roll up as a service platform. So that's why we come up with beacon layer, try to manage, like for example, sequencing verification, staking, slashing, governance, and upgrading, right? So we only with beacon layer to basically help us to coordinate all the rollups and customers. So this being the rollup via the beacon layer, and in the end, all the sort of the sequencers or verifiers are from the community. In that way, we can make it decentralized and at the same time, everything is automatic. So that's why it's not a single challenge. Like for example, just to achieve a consensus protocol or some algorithm, it's like a systematic challenge in general. So from the design implementation for particular features, and then for the infrastructure design, the building, and then to the decentralization of the entire infrastructure. As you can see, we need to make a lot of these steps one by one to really make it work in the long run. So in the future, you can see a very decentralized rollup as service platform with the sequencers of verifiers from the community and powered by AltLayer.
Okay, let's take a question and I will answer this. This is a question that came beforehand, I think via Twitter. And I also saw a question, it's a very similar question on YouTube as well, which is basically the question around, can we expand beyond Ethereum? Or one is, can we expand to other EVM chains beyond Ethereum? And then the second question or follow-up question is, can we expand beyond EVM chains? So can we go to non-EVM chains? The answer is yes. So the first part about the EVM part, we already support EVM chains. So it's not just Ethereum. For example, we did an event, a paid mint event, where you could actually go and bridge assets from BNB chain, Polygon, and Ethereum, right? So non-EVM chains are already supported, and almost any of them can be easily supported because all you need is a basic bridge. For non-EVM chains, the answer is yes, it should also be possible. And the reason is that we have this stack that is built in WASM that allows us to basically support any chain. And I think Ed Felton was talking about something like this as well during his talk, that because you have a WASM base, anything that compiles down to WASM can be supported. So the answer to both questions is yes. The EVM part is already supported. So right now, if you want to have a flash layer, you can actually go and connect it to any chain you want, any EVM chain you want. Non-EVM chains is in the pipeline, but first we want to finish the EVM components completely. Let's take another question that I saw on I think YouTube somewhere, which is, there were talks around EigenLayer, there were talks around with Espresso. Will it be possible to integrate Espresso and let's say EigenLayer in rollup as a service, offering, given that AltLayer already has some of the big bits already built? Yaoqi, you want to take that?
Yeah, so for EigenLayer, as Sriram mentioned in this morning's talk, right? So the EigenDA is basically quite balanced DA. So it's sort of like it balances the cost and also the performance. So in that case, as RAS platform, so later on, for the new version, we will have multiple options for the developers to choose regarding DA. So either you can use your own nodes as the off-chain DA system, or you can choose probably like EigenLayer or even Celestia as your DA system, which are quite professional in building a DA network. Or if as a project, right, for example, as a DeFi project, you really feel that your data should be posted to Ethereum to make sure like all the data available at this Ethereum security level. Then we also provide the option that you can post your data to Ethereum. It's just like it's quite costly. And beyond that, it's also open to various like EVM chains and also some other decentralized storage projects. Regarding Espresso actually previously we had a bunch of conversation with Ben, and we feel that Espresso is really like this pre-execution DA. So it helps you to basically fetch and aggregate the transactions on the Espresso platform. And after that, it gives you an ordered like list of transactions for your rollup to execute. So in that case, it's also a non-intrusive platform for us to integrate to. Actually, for both of these projects, right, we already have some team members to look at their code base and documentation to look at how we can plug in EigenLayer, use them as EigenDA at the beginning. And also for the Espresso, we can look at how to leverage Espresso network as this pre-execution DA to order these transactions and send to some of our rollups. If the rollups really choose Espresso as sort of the share sequencing layer at the beginning. Yeah.
Okay, let's take another question, which is around Arbitrum Orbit. So the question is, explain the integration with Arbitrum Orbit and the tech stack. What is its relevance and why facilitate L3? How it facilitates L3 app development. So let me take that question. For a little bit of context, and I think so those who listened to the talk from Ed Felton, he gave a talk on Arbitrum in general, but also had quite a few bits and pieces on Arbitrum Orbit. So Arbitrum Orbit is basically a tech stack that allows people to deploy application-specific instances of Arbitrum's code base, essentially, Arbitrum's tech stack, essentially. And again, for context, Arbitrum is today the largest layer 2 or the largest rollup provider today in the market. It has a TVL about 5.8 billion. In TVL, it has a market share about 60%. So Arbitrum One is one of the biggest providers in the market for rollup, or biggest rollup today. And so it's really interesting for us to kind of help people who are building on Arbitrum to give them a choice to build the application-specific infrastructure that uses the same stack, the same tech stack that Arbitrum offers as a part of Arbitrum One, for example. So it's really relevant because there are people, and Ed Felton mentioned that as well. There are people who really want customizability. There are people who want their stack to be much more scalable, and that you can do that only if you have your own application-specific infrastructure. And that's why it's important for us to support Arbitrum Orbit. In terms of integration, it will look very similar to what Yaoqi demonstrated at the start of the Q&A. Basically, you will have the same kind of dashboard You'll have the same experience, and you'll be able to just pick and say, okay, I want a flash layer, or I want an Arbitrum orbit, or I want a flash layer connected to Arbitrum 1. You would have all these different choices. You can pick the right kind of stack that makes sense, most sense for your business and an application use case. Hope that answers your question around Arbitrum Orbit and why it's important for us. And obviously, it will help anyone wanting to build on Arbitrum Orbit. And that will basically, we will provide the entire, let's say, managed service that would run behind Arbitrum Orbit. Let's take a follow-up question. And this is something around beacon layer. I think there was, I think Yaoqi gave a great talk on beacon layer and some of all the benefits that beacon layer provides you. But I think it's good to summarize, and this is a question that kind of pertains to that as well, which is, why do we refer beacon layer as an interlayer? Like, what's the significance of an interlayer, and why this interlayer is important? Yaoqi, you want to take this one?
Yeah. So why we need beacon layer? So from the system evolving perspective, right? So as we can see, so we can divide this rollup category into multiple stages. The first stage is we need basically a single sequencer and also the proof, either this fraud proof or validity proof. And this proof just need to verify the execution of the transactions via this EVM, right? So in that case, the proof, they just need to verify the logic for the EVM and also the EVM instructions. And then in the stage two, since there are a lot of requirements from the community or projects, they want this multi-sequencer to make it relatively decentralized to avoid single point failure and to mitigate MEV or some other issues, right? So in that case, we need to have multiple sequencer. And once we have multiple sequencer, we need some sort of agreement protocol within this sequencer just to make sure like they agree on the same block of transaction to be executed and generated. So in that case, like for the proving system, they also need to take the agreement protocol into consideration beyond this execution of the instructions. And so then we need some extra implementation and logic for the proof system to support this extra agreement protocol among all the sequencers. And on top of that, so since we have multiple sequencer, we know who behaving wrongly and who are behaving in a good manner via the proof system, right? So we need staking and slashing, basically a penalty mechanism to basically punish some of the sequencers who behave maliciously. And that's sort of the stage two. And stage three is sort of like where we have, why we are proposing this beacon layer. Because like right now we have probably 5 major rollups, but gradually when more games, social applications, DeFi applications who are capturing a lot of users, they will definitely spin off their own rollups or app chains. So in that case, we can foresee tons of thousands of rollups in the world. And in that case, we really need a sort of a decentralized layer to manage these rollups. That's something we are building at AltLayer, right? The first step that we provide this no-code Rust platform for developer to quickly spin off the rollups within 2 minutes. But after that, we want to make it decentralized. So that's why we need this insurance rollup interlayer between the rollup and also the Ethereum. So once we have this decentralized layer, right, it can help us to handle a bunch of things. First one is decentralized sequencing. So as we just mentioned, right, rollup may want to have multiple sequencer. Where to find these sequencers within a decentralized network? And after that, we also want decentralized verification. Where to find these verifiers? We need this a network. And beyond that, how we do governance, how we do message passing across different rollups, how we do the upgrading, and even how we do this on-chain governance. All of these, we need a decentralized protocol. So in the ideal case, it should be Ethereum. That's why in my talk I mentioned about like the best case for insurance rollup is to like all the rollups in front to Ethereum. But we just create too much responsibility for Ethereum in that case. So that's why we need like something like this beacon layer to help to coordinate or orchestrate all these rollups at the same time, provide this decentralized sequencing, verification, staking, slashing, governance, upgrading, all of these stuff. In that case, like we can provide the entire decentralized Rust platform for all the developers, especially game developers, NFT, or the social developers, which they are not familiar with how to spin up a rollup or blockchain, right? So they can just focus on their business logic. So that's why we need a beacon layer. Basically, it's sort of like we follow the evolution of the technology in the in the rollup space, but at the same time, it's definitely needed when we have more and more rollups in this ecosystem and space.
Thanks, Yaoqi. Let's take this question. I'll take this question, which came on YouTube just now. Any plans to have your Blocks Pro that look like Etherscan, but built on AltLayer? Block Scout Explorer Scan is somehow confusing. So the answer is, first of all, thank you for the feedback around Block Scout. And so the idea is, yes, we would love to support multiple different types of explorers, but at the moment we mostly focus on integrating those explorers that are kind of open source. It's easier for us to kind of integrate that quite easily with our rest of the stack. At some point, if we feel like it's not good enough for our clients, we'd be happy to go and build a separate block explorer. Hopefully, at that point, maybe someone else will build a much better block explorer, and that we could just use and integrate. But for those, and some people might, those people who are looking to have a persistent block explorer, persistent rollup, they might actually want to have a proper Etherscan like tool. So in that way, in that model, basically you have to contact Etherscan, and Etherscan can build a block explorer just for your specific use case. But as you can imagine, it's not, it comes with a cost, and it's may not be interesting for, let's say, short-term usage. That's kind of why we are using something which comes open sourced and free. But yeah, for those that are our clients that are looking for, let's say, a longer-term persistent rollup, then I think something like Etherscan could make sense. And yeah, at some point, once we have a little bit more time on hand, we might be able to might be interested in kind of building our own block explorer as well. Let's take another question, which is so let's take a question more on the non-tech side this time. So this is for Yaoqi. What are some of the real-world use cases or applications where AltLayer solutions have been successfully implemented? Would you take that?
Yeah, there are a bunch of partners we've collaborated recently. I believe some of the quite successful examples we show for the past few months. One is this NFT mint. As we all know, right, we minted this OG badge and also this OLT NFT, and also this carriers cool. And for this NFT mint, right, typically it's quite straightforward for users to use, and basically all the NFT minted within a few seconds or a few minutes. So it's quite smooth, and in the end, like the protocol automatically settled all the NFT back to Ethereum, and people can easily trade over the OpenSea. And beyond that, we also have the partners who are organizing events using some NFT tickets, and we successfully sort of run this NFT system for some of these events, like the football events recently in Malaysia, and with some smart wallet, we provide this really seamless user experience for the users. So they don't need to set up MetaMask. They can just click on the page to mint the NFT as the ticket, and everything is done automatically on the backend. On the other side, it's related to the big partnership announcement. And basically, some of the firms, we already set up the partnership, and they will start to use our layer our RAS platform to set up these different rollups for different famous game and game studios. So as you all know, right, for game and also social applications, the the latency is very important. So we got a lot of feedback from the game developers, either from the Web 2 or from Web 3. Of course, their requests are quite different. Some of them request for 15 billion gas limit. Some of them require for sub-second block time, and some of them want to be quite like sort of quite user friendly with zero gas. So in that case, it's like not possible for general purpose L1, L2 to achieve that. And so they seek the help and support from us. And then later for all these sort of parameter or configurations, you can just set it up via the dashboard yourself. So no need, this manual support anymore. And these are sort of the examples we've done for the past few months. And of course, we continuously receive the the demands from DeFi projects. For DeFi project, they want the security to be as high as possible. So in that case, they want the multi-sequencer, and meanwhile, proof system is a must. And also some other like governance project, they want this multi-sequencer, basically as many sequencers as possible because it's for governance. So it would be great to have a quite decentralized system compared to single sequencer or it's relatively centralized rollup system. So as you can see, right, the requests and also the requirements from different projects are quite different. But in the end, we clearly see that there's a lot of demand for customization and a lot of demand for this dedicated rollup just for the applications. So it's a quite clear trend, at least for us, to provide this no-code RAS platform for these projects, as they can just focus on their main business logic, and underlying infrastructure can just being requested via AltLayer's platform.
Thank you, Yaoqi. Let's take a couple more questions. We are pretty close, running out of time. So let's take two more questions. So I'm seeing a question on YouTube. AltLayer team, thank you for such a great event. A lot of insights and deep dive into the role of landscape and developments. Are you planning to onboard third-party validator companies in testnet? The answer is yes. We are at a stage where the nodes are still run by us, but we will. So it will be kind of staged release. The next stage, we'll be opening up the testnet in a kind of whitelisted manner. So if you whitelist, then you'll be able to come and join the network. And the second stage would be a completely permissionless testnet where anyone could come and become a node operator. And it's something that if you go back to Yaoqi's presentation, he has a list of upcoming, I guess, milestones that he touches upon. There's another related question that I will pass to Yaoqi, which is what is the system requirements for running a validator node?
Yeah, the cool part that based on our experiments, like the specs for running either a sequencer for a rollup or running a validator for the beacon layer, it's a minimum. Like typically, like for some of our internal machines, is like a 2 CPU core and 4G RAM. But we recommend at least you have the machine with the laptop specs, right? But in general, it will be sort of the minimum machine requirement. And so that's why we always emphasize that we want to have this decentralized infrastructure as early as possible, so we can welcome as many community members to join the network to provide their sort of machines for becoming sequencers or becoming the beacon validators. So in that case, as I just mentioned, right, it's no longer like the AWS in Web3. It's a real truly decentralized infrastructure system to provide a rollup as a system product for the rollup space.
I was on mute. So let's take one more question from, I will take one more question. I will leave the last question, which will be a simple question for Yaoqi to close off. So one last question for me, which I'm picking from YouTube, which is, how do these technologies address scalability, cost efficiency, and user experience challenges commonly faced in decentralized applications? The answer is actually, when you have, imagine, for example, when you are interacting today with a Uniswap on Ethereum, you are basically, as a user, you're paying two fees. One fee is what you pay to Ethereum as gas fee, and the second fee is what you pay to the application itself, right? So there are two fees that you pay, and this is not great for user experience, right? And that's kind of why people are developing and building, an account abstraction where you could say, okay, I don't want to pay. User doesn't have to pay the gas fee. User only pays the application fee, for example, the fee for trading, for example. And all of this could be very easily adjusted on this is very hard to do on a base chain, and that's why you need layers and layers of abstraction on top to be built. But if you have something like an application-specific rollup, you could actually do and build all of this quite easily. For example, you could have a completely gasless experience, and not in the form of account abstraction, because someone else is paying a gas. But here, the model could be completely gasless, where there's no gas at all, even at the protocol level, and you can do that. And that's why that actually helps you in one way, at least, from user experience, in terms of user experience. So users don't have to worry about acquiring gas token and paying for gas. And the other things that you can do, for example, you could improve your latency and scalability, which obviously gives a lot more benefit to people interacting with the blockchain. One last question, and we'll close off as we are running out of time. Yaoqi, when mainnet?
So we are progressing step by step. So right now, if you look at the dashboard, right? So for a lot of these rollup services, they are sort of production ready. If you want to launch this NFT campaign or some gaming sessions, you can quickly launch via the dashboard, and so basically all the operations and activities can be done on the Flash layer. After that, you can settle on the selected L1 like Ethereum, Polygon, and Binary chain. So that part is sort of like already production ready. But for the beacon layer side, right, that's why we are running a lot of campaigns on the testing the features for the beacon layer recently. Like for the past two, we already tested sort of like this multi-sequencer and also staking slashing mechanism. And later on, we will test this no joining and challenging mechanism. So gradually, we will roll out these features once this production ready. And meanwhile, as you can see, right, we want to build all this stuff ready before we launch a mainnet. And so in that case, I believe you will see a lot of good news and partnership along this way. And hope the community can basically join us, and together we witness the progress of the entire development. Yeah.
Well, thank you, Yaoqi. With this, we have reached the end of the RAS day, the Rollup as a Service Day. Hope you enjoyed the talks from the amazing speakers and this Q&A in particular. For those who didn't notice, it was a live Q&A. So we are picking questions live from people, posting them on YouTube, and we are answering them in live. We also thank all the speakers for making time to prepare for the talk, given their busy schedules and time zone differences and whatnot. So yeah, that's the end of this RAS Day. A gentle reminder that several of our team members will be in Paris for ETC. It's an event that will happen in mid-July this year. We'll also have a roll-up day side event there. So if you will be in town, come and say hello. Until then, goodbye and have a very good day ahead. Thank you.